Eleanor Williams, Untold Stories from the West. The fire had burned down to a low glow, casting long shadows across the clearing. Camp had gone quiet around us. Cynthia had turned in first, disappearing into her tent without a word. Cripps followed soon after, muttering about his knees as he shuffled off. Elizabeth lingered longest, her gaze catching mine across the fire before she disappeared into the flap of her tent. Roman didn't have a tent. He was still new, not really part of us, not yet anyway. He slept by the wagon with his bedroll, hat pulled down low over his face, one boot crossed over the other, a knife resting near his side like it belonged there more than he did. Fuji circled around near him, sniffed his bedroll like she wasn't sure about him yet, then trotted to lay beside my tent, head heavy on her paws, one ear twitching at every sound. Charlotte and I had been sitting away back, but as the night deepened and the warmth faded, we'd both crept in closer. She'd gone to fetch one of the blankets and came back with it wrapped tight around her shoulders, sinking down beside me in the dirt. We didn't speak much. I poked at the coals, sparks lifting into the dark like fireflies pulled from a nightmare. Sweat chilled on the back of my neck. My hands wouldn't stay still. "You ever think of leaving all this behind?" I asked, my voice rough, thinner than I meant it to be. Charlotte blinked at me through the flickering light. "You mean like settling down somewhere?" "No," I said, shaking my head. The world tilted a little with the motion, but I forced myself steady. "Not forever, just getting away, even for a little while." She tilted her head. "Why?" I shrugged, watching the flames blur and sharpen. "Dust never leaves your bones if you don't step away from it." She didn't answer right away, but I could tell she was thinking. After a moment, she said, "Where would you go?" I hesitated. My tongue felt dry, my throat catching like I swallowed sand. "North," I said finally, "where the air bites and the snow covers everything like it's trying to make the world clean again." Charlotte looked at me, eyes wide with quiet hope. "You mean where it actually snows?" I nodded solemnly. "Yeah, somewhere real cold, trees heavy with frost, rivers frozen over. The kind of cold that stings your skin and wakes you up inside." She gave a soft, breathy laugh. "I've always wanted to see snow. Real snow. I dream about it sometimes." "I know," I said, looking over at her. My chest ached, not just from the hurt in my ribs, but from something deeper, hollow. "That's why I brought it up." She smiled, small and a little sad. "You think we'll ever make it?" "I do," I said. My fingers twitched in the dirt, restless. "And when we do, we'll stand in it together. You'll hate how cold your boots get, but you'll love every second of it." Charlotte leaned her head against her knees again, that smile still playing on her lips. "I'd like that." The fire cracked softly. Around us, the night held its breath. And for a little while, we just sat there, me and her, beneath the stars, talking about snow. The fire was nearly out now. Only a few glowing coals remained, pulsing faintly in the ash, like the heart of something that refused to be forgotten. Charlotte's breathing had slowed. Her eyes were half-lidded, the cold starting to weigh heavier than her thoughts. I reached over and tugged at the end of the blanket higher around her shoulders. She didn't stir, just murmured something soft I didn't catch. The wind moved lightly through the grass, not enough to chill, just enough to remind you it was still there. Across the camp, tents were quiet. Cynthia's silhouette moved once behind canvas, then stilled. Elizabeth's tent was dark. Roman hadn't budged, curled near the crate with his coat pulled tight, a lone figure still on the edge of us all. I leaned back on my hands, though they trembled, and I looked up. The stars stretched out overhead, endless and silent. My body was restless, itching under my skin, but I forced myself to breathe slow. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe more running, maybe more fire. But for now, I was right here, with Charlotte. I glanced at Charlotte one more time. Her face had gone soft in sleep. a little smile tugging at her mouth. I whispered, almost to myself, "We'll find that snow." And in the quiet that followed, it felt like a promise. The fire had shrunk to a dull glow, nothing left but the bones of flame. I watched it a moment longer before shifting forward with a soft grunt. My ribs protested, but I ignored them. "Charlotte," I murmured, reaching out to brush her arm. She stirred, slow and reluctant, brows knitting like she'd been pulled from somewhere warm. It's colding up. Come on, let's get you to your tent." She blinked, heavy-lidded. "I wasn't sleeping," she mumbled. "Sure you weren't," I said with a faint smile. "You were just listening to the stars with your eyes closed." She yawned and sat up straighter. The blanket slipped from one shoulder and I helped gather it back around her. She swayed a fraction, but I steadied her with the hand at her elbow. "Careful," I said. "I don't want to be carrying you. I still got bruised rib or two." She smirked, sleepy and amused. "Guess I'll carry you then." We walked together across the clearing, her steps soft on the grass. The night spread around us, calm and dark, the silent like snowfall. When we reached her tent, she turned back, eyes soft under the stars. "Good night, Eleanor." "Night, Charlotte." She disappeared into the canvas, and the flap fell back into place. I looked up at the sky one last time, then to my own tent. Sometime in the deep hours, the horses stirred first. A slow snort, a twitch of ears, then a hoof thudding the earth. I woke before I knew why, sitting up in the dark with my heart stuttering like it's been shot. Just outside the flap, I heard Fuji shift against the canvas where she'd be bedded down. A quiet huff of breath, but nothing more. Not alarmed yet, just uneasy in her sleep. The air outside had changed. The embers were guttering, but the silence pressed in. No insects, no wind, only a still that felt too thick. My hands twitched at my sides. Restlessness had been gnawing at me all night. I slid my revolver from under the pillow, careful not to scrape canvas. Outside, the tent walls glowed faintly from the dying coals. Fuji lay curled near the entrance, ears flickering before she finally lifted her head, sniffing. She didn't bark, just stared into the dark, like she could feel something coming too. A twig snapped. I slipped out, gun already up. Fuji scrambled to her paws behind me, sleepy stiffness gone in an instant. Tail low but body alert as she pressed close to my leg. Elizabeth was already up near the fire, pistol drawn. Roman emerged from the shadows, rifle at the ready, a dark shape like a promise of trouble. The night held its breath. A figure stepped onto the ridge beyond the last rise of dry grass, cloaked on food, wide-brimmed hat pulled low. Moonlight caught the grease of a long coat, but left the face in shadow.
"Evening,"
stranger said, voice low and cracked like a dry leather.
"Didn't mean to startle you. Saw the smoke. Figure you folks had coffee."
Nobody answered. Elizabeth moved a pace forward.
"We don't want company."
The figure raised both hands slow and easy.
"Didn't come for trouble, just passing through. Saw Blackwater. Heard tell of a real mess. Bodies, blood, sheriff half out of his mind."
He let the words hang, gravelly and casual. My grip tightened. The man tipped his head, and thin smile under his brim.
"Funny thing. Been hearing stories. Folks say ghosts slipped out of Blackwater. A woman in white, another that limps, one with silver in her hair. You wouldn't happen to see anyone like that, would you?"
No one moved. Then Cynthia's voice cut the dark, low and flat.
"Get away from this camp, or you'll never pass through anywhere again."
The stranger turned and found her standing there, silent, rifle raised, eyes hard as flint. How long had she been behind him? Long enough. His smile faltered.
Didn't mean nothing," he stammered. "Didn't recognize anybody, just thought..."
The rest of it died away. He'd recognized enough. He was weighing how dangerous that recognition might be.
"Keep walking," Cynthia said. "You've got 5 seconds."
He didn't wait. He melted into the trees without another word. his steps fading until the forest swallowed them. For a long moment we didn't speak. The wind slid back through the trees as if nothing had happened, but we stood frozen, me with the cold metal in my hand, Elizabeth's knuckles white, Roman still watching the dark. Cynthia didn't lower her rifle, neither did Elizabeth relax her grip. Roman stayed half-shadow, jaw tight. Fuji finally eased, though her tail stayed low, her gaze glued to the trees, like she could burn a hole through the dark. I stepped closer, hand brushing Fuji's neck. She leaned into me without taking her eyes off the ridge. "You followed him?" I asked. "Clocked him earlier," Cynthia muttered. Saw him nosing around the camp edge. Didn't like how he moved. Circled wide and kept my eye on him. Elizabeth eased her gun down but didn't relax. "And you didn't holler sooner?" Cynthia's gaze flicked to her, flat and unimpressed. "Did you need help pulling the trigger?" Silence snapped tight around us like wire. We listened until the last footfall died. Roman cleared his throat, then slipped back into the shadows without a word. I envied him. I turned to Cynthia, searching her face. "You all right?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes were still fixed on the dark, where the stranger had vanished. "I'm tired, hungry." She finally looked at me. "But yeah, I'm all right." I nodded. Elizabeth showed her pistol in its holster. "We need to break camp by sunrise," she muttered, voice low and tight. "That man's going to talk, or follow. Either way, this spot's burned." I opened my mouth to argue, but Cynthia cut in first. "She's right." It hit me then. There'd be no resting, no regrouping, no grieving. Not properly. The world didn't care what we lost in Limpany, or what we were holding together with split and thread. Charlotte stumbled from her tent, hair mused, wrapped in one of the thinner blankets. "What's going on?" I crossed to her quickly, lowering my gun. "Nothing you need to worry about, just someone passing through." Her eyes flicked past me, to the cold fire pit, to Elizabeth's hurried hands, her brows knit tighter. "That's not passing through." "What is it, Eleanor? Tell me." I stepped closer, kept my voice low. "We had a visitor. Someone sniffing too close." "Was it bad?" she asked. I hesitated. "Not yet." Charlotte looked like she wanted to press, but instead she just reached for my hand and gave it a squeeze. I didn't pull away. Behind us, Elizabeth was already packing, movements sharp and clipped. Roman stamped out what was left of the fire. Cynthia hadn't taken her rifle off her shoulder, and I wasn't sure she would anytime soon. Fuji patted close while I gathered the tents and coffee pot. Her paws stirred the dust. She sniffed back at the place where the stranger had stood, then came back to my side, tail low but steady. While I crouched to tie the bundle, she pressed her nose against my arm. A quiet check-in, like she could feel the tremor I was fighting to hide. We moved without speaking, no need for orders. Tents came down under the gray light, canvas and robe coiling into the wagon. The smoke was gone, but that man's voice lingered, curling around every motion like a warning. Charlotte moved slow, still half asleep, but steady. She held the lantern for me while I packed the cooking kit. Her hands trembled now and then, but she never let go. Roman got the horses ready, tacked and bridled, each one without a word, reins coiled tight. His face gave nothing, but the way he checked every strap twice betrayed the tension under his skin. Elizabeth worked fast, eyes sharp, jaw locked. She tossed canvas and robe into the wagon like she was burying it. "Should have shot him," she muttered. "Should have ended it when we had the chance." With Charlotte out here, Cynthia's voice was flat, frayed at the edges. She was tying down gear at the back of her mare. "One rifle shot would have drawn every ear from here to the next ridge." Neither raised their voice. They didn't need to. I tightened the saddle on Charlotte's horse, then my own. "We can sleep later," I murmured, mostly to myself. Charlotte's voice came quiet. "Where are we going?" Elizabeth turned, arms crossed. "Doesn't matter." We can't stay. He saw enough. Cynthia nodded, jaw tight. Someone will come looking. Could be Pinkertons. Could be worse. Roman paused with the rein in his hand, looking east. The horizon was still black, a thin edge of dawn just pressed against the ridgeline.
So where?
He asked. Nuh-uh, you slick bastard, Elizabeth muttered, yanking the saddle hinge so hard the leather groaned. You ain't coming with us. You've lingered here long enough. Roman still beside the wagon, one hand on the reins. His voice was cool, measured.
Didn't you realize there was a timer on goodwill? And then, why are you always at my cojones?
She stood straight, brushing the dust from her palms like she couldn't wait to be rid of him. You showed up out of nowhere, dragged Eleanor back like a half-starved mutt. And now what? We're supposed to treat you like one of us? Then her eyes narrowed, sharp as class. And what the hell does that even mean? Cojones? That your way of calling me a bitch? He gave a dry laugh, all bite, no humor.
No. If I wanted to say that, I'd use smaller words. You either trust Eleanor or you don't. I didn't ride across New Hanover looking for your blessing.
Elizabeth scoffed, lips curling. No, you dragged her back because you needed to feel useful. Her gaze locked on him, flint bright and cutting. I've seen your type. Always riding at the edge of firelight, watching, waiting, hoping someone else takes the first bullet so you don't have to. His jaw worked.
You don't know a damn thing about me.
I know enough, she said flatly. You smell like someone who's good at slipping through cracks. Someone who leaves the second things get heavy. I stepped between them, voice hard as iron. That's enough. Elizabeth didn't look at me at first. Roman kept his eyes on the dark, like he was choking something down. I didn't soften. Roman stays with us, whether you like it or not. Elizabeth's mouth pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. I turned toward the ridges rising in the west. Big Valley, past Manzanita Post. We'll cut through the woods by Ovangila Dam. No strawberry, not with all those eyes. Behind us, Cripps cleared his throat long enough to cut the air. If we telling who stays and who don't, I'll have you know I once lasted 3 weeks in the Grizzlies with nothing but a spoon and a half jar of pickled onions. So unless one of you can top that, I reckon I'm still sticking around. Silence followed. Even the horses blinked at him.
Dios mío,
Roman muttered. Cripps just shrugged. Man's gotta eat. Elizabeth rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might fall over. I didn't smile, not fully, but the tension cracked, just a little. Fuji padded up beside me then, tail flickering once before she gave a low cough. Yeah, come on, girl, I said, patting the wagon. Hop on. She leapt up on the back without hesitation, curling once before settling near the gear, ears pricked toward the horizon, always ready, always watching. It took us over an hour to reach the edge of Ovangila Dam. The sun was still rising, dappling through the thick leaves, warming the air but never quite shaking the night's chill. Below, the river churned and swelled with the season's rains, waters wild and restless, mist drifting up from the roar. We paused there, listening. Big Valley lay ahead, miles away, but closer than the ghosts that chased us here. Elizabeth scanned the horizon, jaw tight. This place ain't no sanctuary, but it's a start. Cynthia adjusted her rifle, eyes never still. Better than waiting for the next shadow to find us. I looked at the others. The weight of it all settled heavy in the morning air. We had to keep moving. The trail climbed slow, pine needles muffling the horses' hooves, rock breaking loose under the iron shoes. My chest still burned, ribs screaming with every shift in the saddle. Charlotte rode behind me at first, rubbed tight in her blanket like it could hold her together. I eased Sora back until we rode level. She didn't look up. Her hair was a mess. The swelling in her cheek had faded, but the bruises on her neck were still dark. Raw reminders she didn't try to hide. She just buttoned her collar high and kept her head low. You okay? I asked. Stupid question. I knew the answer. She shook her head low, like her body was a few beats behind her thoughts. Don't know. That hit heavier than I wanted it to. If I hadn't brought up the damn chocolate, I started. It's not that. She got in quick. Her voice shook, but her words didn't. It's not you. I let the silence stretch, gave her room. It's me, she said finally, barely above the creak of leather. I looked at her, really looked. She sat upright, stiff, holding herself together with splinters and thread. Her hands trembled on the reins, knuckles pale. You're still healing, I said. You don't gotta carry everything today. Charlotte's eyes stayed fixed on the trail. Ain't about carrying. I waited. Her voice dropped to something raw. They could have killed me. Or worse. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream loud enough. If you and Cynthia hadn't... Her jaw snapped shut. Before I could think twice, I nudged my horse closer and set my hand over hers on the reins. Just for a second. The horses slowed to steady walk, shoulder to shoulder. They didn't, I said. And I was there. I'm not going anywhere. Her throat bobbed, but she didn't pull away. I should have fought back, she whispered. Kicked, bit, screamed louder, anything. Instead I just froze like a coward. No, my voice came out harder than I meant. You froze because you thought you were gonna die. That ain't cowardice. That's survival. Charlotte blinked fast, but the tears didn't fall. I hate feeling this small. Like I'm just dragging behind while the rest of you ride ahead with your rifles and grit and purpose. You're not dragging, I said. You're here. That's not nothing. Her breath hitched, shaky. Feels like nothing. It ain't. Nobody here got through clean. You're still breathing. That's enough for now. Truth was, pain like hers never left in the straight line. It circled. One night she'd smile by the fire, almost herself again. But by morning, the weight was back, heavier. That's how it goes. Hurt lingers, waits, comes back when it pleases. She looked at me then, eyes classy but steady. You sure? Yeah, I said. I'm sure. We rode in silence after that, leaves whispering overhead, branches shedding what they couldn't hold. Her fingers stayed tangled with mine on the reins, loose but there. I didn't ask her to let go. Behind us, Cynthia rode one-handed, rifle slung easy across her back like it belonged there more than she did. Elizabeth kept to her right, jaw tight, eyes cutting through the trees. You gonna keep clearing at trees? Cynthia asked lightly. Or you planning to talk? Elizabeth didn't answer. Her posture was rigid, fingers tapping on the saddle horn like a slow metronome of irritation. Cynthia raised a brow. Didn't think you were the silent, brooding type. I'm not brooding. You're giving that pine stump a death stare. Elizabeth exhaled sharp. I don't like him. Figured. Elizabeth's eyes flickered toward her. You're fine with him? He's still here, ain't he? That's not the same. No, but he hasn't given us a reason to put a bullet in him either. Silence. Then quieter, Elizabeth muttered. He watches people like he's already disappointed in them. Cynthia smiled faintly. So do you. Elizabeth gave her a look, not hostile, just measured. He brought Eleanor back, Cynthia added. Whatever else he is, he did that. Eleanor doesn't always see straight when it comes to people. She sees straight enough when it counts. Elizabeth didn't answer. Her eyes drifted to the ridgeline, scanning shadows like she expected them to answer instead. You think he's dangerous? Cynthia asked. I think he's patient. For what? Elizabeth's thumb brushed the edge of her holster. I'll let you know when he makes up his mind. Behind them, the wagons rattled over a rut. Roman sat tall on the bench seat, reins loose in hand, hat tipped low. His voice carried forward, even and dry. If either one of you got something to say to me, I speak English, mostly. Elizabeth didn't glance back. You listening in now? Hard not to, with all that brooding and pine cone talk. His tone was flat, but the edge was there. From the next wagon, Cripps shimmed in around a mouthful of jerky. Ain't no shame in eavesdropping. Learned everything I know about women that way. Of course, most of it's a curse now. Roman muttered. You're the curse.
VIII.
Cripps trapped a finger without looking.
Still got more teeth than you got charm, boy.
Elizabeth rolled her eyes hard enough it nearly tipped her hat. Cynthia didn't smile, not quite, but her grip on the reins eased. The trail narrowed, forcing us tighter. Dust rose from hooves. Wagons groaned through the bend. Roman said nothing now, jaw tight, eyes flickering. He'd heard enough. The tension pressed down, heavy as the bruises still burning in my ribs. So I said, quiet but clear,
All of you, that's enough.
No one argued.
I know we're all sore,
I went on, voice carrying down the line without needing to shout.
but we ain't got room for grudges right now.
That earned me a glance. Roman, Elizabeth, even Cripps, who lifted one pushy brow like he wasn't sure if I was talking to him or not.
Charlotte's been through hell, I said. I can't ride 10 minutes without feeling like my ribs are coming apart, and I lost my grandpa. Cynthia lost her own father, shot 2 men in Blackwater, and hasn't been the same since. Elizabeth, I hesitated. You're holding tight to something. I know that look. I've had it myself.
No one spoke.
We've lost enough. Got enough scars between us to map half the territory. So unless someone's planning to turn around and ride alone, I let it hang. Elizabeth looked away. Cynthia just watched me. We stick together, I said, even if we don't like it. We're all we got.
A long beat paused. Cripps muttered,
If holding hands keeps the bullets away, all need is a damn friendship guild.
That cracked something. Cynthia huffed. Even Charlotte gave a crooked smile. Elizabeth didn't smile, but she didn't argue either. And Roman, quiet on the wagon, gave a small nod and kept his eyes forward. By the time we reached Big Valley, the air turned clean in a way I hadn't felt in weeks. Sharp with pine, touched faintly with water. The river carved through the land like it had been there since the first dawn, lupine pluming wild in careless swaths along the banks. Wide country, open and exposed, but peaceful too. We could make it work. I was still taking it in when my eyes caught on the homestead in the distance. No smoke, no cattle, no movement. Just a stillness that felt a little too still. I raised my hand, gave a low whistle. The others slowed, reining in. Elizabeth, I said, keeping my eyes on the place. We'll need to ride up and check that farmstead. Can't take chances. She brought her horse alongside mine, gaze fixed. You think someone's still there? Or left in a hurry, I said. Either way, I want to know before nightfall. The rest of the gang waited, quiet but watchful. Roman tightened his grip on the reins. Cripps struck a match, light a cigar, muttered around the smoke. Charlotte sat stiff, blankets still clutched like the cold hadn't let her go. Cynthia's hand rested near her rifle. I glanced back. Rest of you, check the gapping on the right. Half an hour, we meet back here. Cynthia gave me a dry look. And if it's not empty? Then knock first, I said, but keep your guns close. Elizabeth huffed under her breath and spurred forward. I followed, wind tugging at my shirt, the grass whispering around the horse's hooves. The homestead loomed closer, log buildings solid but silent, the barn largest, 2 cabins flanking, all windows dark. Timber withered but sound, roofs neat, fences upright. From a distance it looked lived in. Up close, it looked like it was holding its breath. And it's the quiet places that tend to hide the sharpest teeth. I rested a hand on my holster. Stay sharp. Elizabeth nodded once. Always. The horses slowed, ears flickering, hooves crunching in the dirt yard. The place was too neat, too still. Barn doors latched, no scrape marks, no restless cattle, bins empty. A water through brimmed full, but filmed over, untouched for days. Elizabeth reined beside me, eyes sharp. Folks don't leave things this tidy unless they mean to. I swung down, boots sinking in soft soil. The earth was freshly turned in spots, not for planting. That prickled in my gut sharpened. Overhead, the windmill groaned, shadows slicing across the barn wall. No birds, no dogs, not even flies. Elizabeth dropped down too, revolver loose but ready. Which first? I scanned the cabins, shutters drawn, chimneys cold. The left one sagged, but its steps were kept clean, dust too even. Someone had walked there not long ago. I touched the butt of my revolver. Right. We crossed the yard, every step too loud in the hush. Elizabeth muttered,
Feels like walking into a sermon, where nobody showed but the preacher.
Feels worse, I said, laying my hand on the door. The knob turned easy, hinges signed as the door opened. Inside the air was cool, heavy, touched with wood smoke gone cold. Afternoon light cut through the shutters in narrow bars. A pine table sat with tin plates laid out, bread gone hard, a pot cold of stove with the spoon left inside. One chair toppled, the rest pushed back like folks had risen all at once. Elizabeth stepped in, eyes scanning.
Didn't prac proper.
No, I said, crouching near the stove. Ashes still grey, not long cold. A day, maybe two. On the mantel, a lamp still half full of oil, weak plaque but not burnt down. Elizabeth dragged a finger through the dust on the table, leaving a streak.
They left in a hurry.
My eyes caught the coat on the door bag, one sleeve slipping loose, the Bible left open on the stand, a page bent where a hand had pressed it flat, not abandoned, interrupted. The silence thickened, pressing in close. Elizabeth's voice dropped. Where the hell did they go? I didn't answer. My gut told me they hadn't gone far. She watched me a moment longer.
You're shaking,
she said quietly.
That the cold? Or your body remembering the morphine?
I flexed my hands, jaw tight.
Don't start.
Not starting, she murmured, eyes still on the empty doorway.
Just saying, I've seen it before. Comes on mean, like grief. You think you've beaten it, till it crawls back under your skin.
I swallowed hard, staring past her into the dark house.
It'll pass.
Elizabeth gave a small nod, not arguing.
Yeah, most things do. Just don't let it fool you into thinking you're fine.
The silence pressed close again, thicker than before. Outside a crow called once, sharp and distant. Then I said quietly,
Let's check upstairs.